Good morning, everyone. I'm John McCutcheon. I'm the president and CEO of EBR Systems. EBR is the developer of the world's first and only leadless pacemaker for heart failure. And we'll talk about why that's important for patients and for our business. Importantly, EBR Systems has no direct competitors. So we're complementary with the incumbent companies, these large companies, Abbott Labs, Medtronic, Boston Scientific. And so we're not in a competitive position when we go to market. We're actually helping them and work together with those companies. We've recently announced our positive clinical trial results, and I'll discuss those here shortly. We've got a very clear commercial strategy, and we're well on our way to achieving FDA approval. The US market will be our primary initial market, and then we'll expand out to Australia and certain markets in Western Europe. We have a significant market opportunity. Our total available market, we estimate to be on the order of $2.6 billion US dollars. So a very sizable market for a medtech device company. And we're well funded. We're well capitalized. As of the end of December, we had 73.4 million US in the bank, and that gets us through regulatory approval and early commercialization. So a little bit about the technology, or about the, the current space. Traditional pacemakers are suboptimal. And the reason they are is that every type of pacemaker, conventional pacemaker that's on the market today, has leads or wires, we call them leads, that go from the battery into the heart. And those leads are a problem. They can migrate, they can fracture over time. They can get infected, and an infection in hardware in the heart can be very, very risky for the patient. And sometimes in the case of heart failure patients, they have to take the lead into the left ventricle, the left side of the heart. And oftentimes they're not able to place that lead because it's a tricky maneuver to get this thin wire into this very small vessel on the left side of the heart. So for a number of reasons, these treatments are suboptimal. And for years now, physicians and industry have been looking for ways to eliminate those leads. So I mentioned Boston Scientific, Abbott Labs, and Medtronic. All three of those large companies have leadless pacemakers for the right heart, for the right ventricle. And this is an important distinction. The right side of the heart is the venous side, and it pumps blood through the lungs before it returns back to the heart to go to general circulation. And so on the right side, it's typically pacing on the right side is for a condition called bradycardia, where someone has a slow or erratic heartbeat, and they need to have that paced. It's your traditional pacemaker that you might think of. On the left side of the heart is where they need to pace if someone has heart failure and the left and right are out of synchrony. And that's why the therapy that we use is called cardiac resynchronization therapy, to get the left and right sides pumping together. You can see on this slide that there are leadless pacemakers from the big three, but those are only effective and safe in the right side of the heart. So they have the leadless Micra, AVEIR, or the Empower. Those go in the right side of the heart, but we have the smallest, tiniest pacemaker to go in the left side of the heart. The reason we're the only one that can do it, we're about 1/20th the size of these other devices, and it's so small that it gets completely covered in tissue, in heart tissue, and so it doesn't generate clots that can then go into circulation and increase the risk of stroke. So we're the only company that can do that. And the exciting thing is that we can pair up with these. So if a clinician like Dr. Allison here from Melbourne wants to put leadless systems in their patients, they can select a Micra or an AVEIR for the right side, put the EBR WISE system in the left side, and these will synchronize and pair together to provide relief for the heart failure patient. We met our pivotal study endpoints. This was announced last May at the Heart Rhythm Society meeting, the US society that for electrophysiologists involved in these sorts of procedures. And we handily met and exceeded our target hurdles for clinical success. We showed a 16.4% reduction in left ventricular end systolic volume. That's a mouthful, but what that means is when the heart squeezes, you want to pump most of the blood to the body. You don't want a lot of that blood sitting in the left ventricle. And so we've reduced the amount of volume left when the heart squeezes. It's called reverse remodeling. And that's a real significant and important marker of reversing the heart failure of those patients. The other thing that leads from that is symptomatic relief. So they not only, that's the key physiologic metric, but then we also show that we reduce or improve their quality of life and their NYHA status. And then in terms of safety, these are very sick patients. And so we show that we can safely deploy this technology in this patient population. And the target hurdle for this was 70%. And we were well above that at 80.9%. Both of these are highly significant statistically, 0.033 on the efficacy side and less than 0.001 on the safety. Further to that, we did a sub-study within that primary study where we had a small cohort that was randomized. And we can show that in the randomized sub-study, we also met all these endpoints or exceeded these endpoints, but all highly statistically significant, all confirming the primary single-arm study showing both safety and efficacy in this patient population. Regards to commercial pathway, we believe it's significantly de-risked. The positive pivotal trial results are really important. When you look at a medtech technology like ours, the biggest, I guess the single biggest binary risk is whether or not you meet your pivotal endpoints. And we did that. And so now it's more the mechanics of moving forward with our FDA submission, the PMA submission. We're doing this in a modular way. So most of the modules have gone in already. We have a few remaining, including the final design verification testing, which shows the technical aspects of our device to the FDA. Once we get that approval in early 2025, we're then poised to launch in the US, drive revenue and growth, and then look to the other markets that I mentioned, Australia and parts of Western Europe. In the US, the reason we targeted multiple reasons. It's the single biggest market in our industry. So it's a large market. It has the best reimbursement, the highest reimbursement, giving us better margins. And then clinically, it's been validated through our KOLs. So we've got strong support from our KOLs. We've been given the breakthrough device designation by FDA, which is saying that we're so novel and important that there's special access to move this approval process forward. The other benefit of the breakthrough device designation, he gives us preferred reimbursement once we get to the market. There's not a lot of hospital adoption barriers. We've got a base of sites that have already been enrolling in the study. And so we can reactivate those when we get to commercial launch. There's no capital expenditure, and there will be reimbursement in place, as I mentioned, because of the breakthrough designation. So we anticipate that we'll be charging on the order of $35,000 to $45,000 US per procedure. And you can imagine how that can scale our revenue very quickly with those sorts of selling prices. So our initial strategy is to, as I mentioned, reactivate our clinical sites. We'll go direct and establish a specialized sales force. We believe that it's an important technology. It's got a high ASP, and that supports having a direct specialized sales force that can really drive growth in a way that I don't believe could be done if we used a distributor. We're going to scale our manufacturing capabilities. We're looking at expanding our facility. Right now, the building I'm standing in here is in square feet. This is a 15,000 square foot building. we're looking at another facility on the order of 30,000 square feet, and we'll be announcing more about that once we actually sign the lease and have the details worked out. Upcoming milestones. Well, what we delivered, as I mentioned, the biggest milestone for us in the last year was meeting the primary endpoints, and then we also shared the randomized data. Coming up in the very near future will be the publication of the study results. So that's imminent, that will be published in a peer-reviewed journal. The big milestone this year, though, the biggest one will be when we submit the final PMA module, and we expect that to happen in the third quarter of this year. There'll be lots of other publications that follow that initial publication. They're all predicated on getting the primary results published first, and then there's a queue of other sub-studies that will come out during this year and next year. And then after that, it's really all about FDA approval and then commercialization, scaling, and then there'll be some other studies that we'll start doing to look at expanding indications, but it's really going to be a commercial story in the next, not in 2024, but in 2025. So in summary, it's a unique solution. We don't have competitors. It's a nice position for us to be in, where we're not trying to displace incumbents with a lot of market power, and so we're complementary and don't have to worry about going head to head with any of those large companies. It's a large addressable market, $2.6 billion. So we're not going to run out of room in terms of growth anytime in the foreseeable future. It's de-risked with the positive clinical results. We've got a very focused strategy to get to commercialization. And I didn't talk about our team, but we've got a fantastic team, industry leaders, and it's the team that can take us forward and make this a success. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and take care.